What's up, everyone? We're back. I'm Dr. Shah, and this is Doctorly Unhinged.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Maxfield, and as you can see from my setup and mobile screen camera here, I am again on the go. Just out at the new practice in Tennessee. But we have potentially the most exciting episode ever, to borrow Dr. Shah's thunder, but it is a lot of good, interesting, extremely intriguing things.
Right. So tell me first, we of course start with our life update. We're going to be talking about some really interesting things just to kind of give you a heads up. We're going to be talking about the skin microbiome, what type of organisms are living on your skin, and what you should do about that. Really interesting acquisition. Loreal bought a stake of Galderma. This is relevant to all of us, and I'm very curious about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to be talking about whether tanning is good for the skin, this new campaign by Differin, a product we always talk about, and then this video that's been going viral on Skinceuticals CE Ferulic that just, I feel like I want to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it. All right. So quickly, what is your life update, Dr. Maxfield?
Traveling, transitioning out from the practice I've been at, loved, made a lot of wonderful relationships there, into Tennessee. And similarly, though, stepping into a situation with great people, great community. But what that does mean is I'm moving a ton. And if anyone saw my short form, it is a mess. And that is only an accurate reflection of my life. But it's great. It's exciting. A lot of changes, but it's good.
Good. Yeah, no, super proud of you getting this practice off the ground. It seems to be up and operating very well now. The office is beautiful. Got the best in class laser devices in Tennessee, and exciting to see you building your next step in life. So that's amazing. Everybody, if you're in Tennessee, definitely check out the practice in the Chattanooga area, a little bit outside of Chattanooga. So if you're nearby, definitely know that you have a new dermatologist in town. Life update for me is really kind of nothing. A lot of people have been coming to visit me at my Miami place. So we always have people kind of in and out. We're doing a lot of construction. We're kind of doing a remodel of the bathroom. So we're not using our master primary bathroom anymore. It's been a little chaotic, but no, nothing, kind of remedies taking over my life in many ways, and in many good ways. And I am just, thank you, and grateful to everybody who's been supporting the brand. Remedy for Body Bumps was finally back in stock, and it's just been incredible, the support from the community. I mean, I just can't express my gratitude enough. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is really focused on Remedy, and just very grateful to the audience and community that we have that have been supporting the brand.
Yeah, no, that is the truth. I think both of us have been wildly humbled. And honestly, it's something I think we talk about behind the scenes to each other regularly. I feel like it comes up once a week. And we've always said this. Our community is so wonderful. And you have showed up across, honestly, both launches. But it means a lot to us because we really actually genuinely put a lot of work forward. We're really trying to bring something we feel like is helpful. And you've just done more than your part, above and beyond. And we just, again, honored, humbled, super thankful for everything and being a part of this with you all. So definitely know that we appreciate it genuinely.
Absolutely. All right, let's hop into the product of the day. What do you have? What have you been loving?
I will actually go back to an old one. Actually, you know what it is? I'm changing it right now. If you're missing a cleanser from your house, Dr. Shah, it's because I have it. It's the Peach and Lily facial cleanser. Which one is it? I don't know how many they have, actually.
I think they have a bunch. It's like the pink one, right? The pink and white one.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Is it what? Is it the Power Calm Hydrating Gel? Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
That's the one. So really accidentally, it made it into my bag on the way home. And I've been using it ever since. It's actually made it home to me. I brought it to Tennessee with me. So that's a very simple cleanser. I think it's very nice. It doesn't strip my skin. It feels great after I use it. So shout out to Peach and Lily. I've gotten a solid, 2 weeks out of it, 3 weeks now. It's become my go-to, at least for the time being.
I love it. Okay. For me, I've been loving just sunscreen sticks in general. But the one that I was using yesterday was this Supergoop Unseen Sunscreen Stick. And I really just want to talk about the utility of sunscreen sticks really quickly for people who don't know, who may be interested. So I'm not a very active person, but I've gotten more active lately, and we spend a lot of time outside, but I also have picked up pickleball recently.
Oh, yeah.
And pickleball lore has sort of gone out of control, and it has taken over communities basically every tennis court has been converted to a pickleball court. And what's amazing about pickleball, and those of you who play already know this, but it's a fun game. It's kind of a hybrid between tennis and ping pong, table tennis. It's kind of like somewhere in between the two of these, but it's quite fun. And what's really interesting about it is that the age ranges of people that we see playing competitively is shocking. There was a court where there was a 10-year-old teamed up with probably 30-year-old, and then they were playing against 80-year-olds, and they were both holding their own, right? So what's really interesting about this game is that it seems as if anyone can play it, and anyone can play it well as long as you practice a little bit. And what also is interesting about it is that it has a lot of transferable skills from other sports. So it's not a hard game to pick up, right? It's not something where, like, there are card games that are harder to pick up than pickleball is. If you've ever played table tennis, if you've ever played regular tennis, if you've ever played badminton, if you've ever played anything that requires hand-eye coordination, you could pick up a pickleball racket and be relatively good at it. And this comes back to the sunscreen stick. So we've been playing it. I've only played it 4 times, and I act like I'm like the world's expert in pickleball. I'm not. But yesterday we were playing, and when you're playing pickleball, you're kind of running around, you're picking up the ball, serving it, and at some point your hands are just like kind of dirty and sweaty. And what am I going to do, right? It's time to reapply sunscreen. We're 2-3 hours into the game. I'm going to reapply sunscreen, but what am I going to do? I'm not going to go to the bathroom, wash my hands, apply sunscreen. I don't want to apply sunscreen to my hands and then apply it to my face. Like, my hands are now contaminated from all the things I've touched, right? So sunscreen sticks just have so much utility in that way. And you can just simply reapply it. Now, I would never use sunscreen stick as my first application in the morning and my only application throughout the day, because you do need to pass it over the skin so many more times than you probably would in order to get the SPF level on the packaging. But I'm okay reapplying it and not getting the SPF 40 on the stick. If I'm at SPF less because I already have a baseline of sunscreen, I'm pretty good with that, right? Because we know that even your first application of sunscreen, you're not going to lose that even throughout an entire 8-hour day. It's not going to zero the protection from your initial first sunscreen application. So you have some baseline sunscreen protection already from the beginning of the day. And then when you reapply it, you're just kind of compounding that, and maybe not to the SPF 40 layer, but me personally, I'm okay with that. It's not, if you're a purist of sunscreen, it's not the way to go. But this, if you're not a purist of sunscreen like me, and you just want some, it's so easy to apply. You don't have to touch anything. It's invisible like any other Supergoop unseen stick, and that's it. Looks great. You get your reapplication, maybe not the layer that you want, but I love it.
That's great. It's a practical part of life. I couldn't agree more. I use sticks all the time. Same thing, reapplying, especially at the beach. Get out after I'm done surfing, add another layer as best I can. But yeah, it's imperfect, practical, and if it gets you to use it, it's acceptable by me for sure.
All right, let's talk about our first article coming out of BBC. And the article from Jasmine Fox Skelly, I'll read the title to you. Our skin is teeming with microbiomes. We should learn to love them. Thoughts?
It's true. So basically, we've talked about this before, and it's one of the most intriguing things, I think, is that we are worlds on ourselves. We're worlds to others. We are the universe, perhaps. But there are millions of organisms on our skin, and interestingly, not all of them are harmful. There are a lot of bacteria on our skin, and I think people who hear or use the term gut health kind of understand the general concept. Things can live in harmony when there are communities of bacteria in us and on us. And so, because of that, things like probiotics or a deliberate use of certain types of bacteria have been shown to be helpful within multiple purposes, but the skin is no exception. And when that balance is shifted, when that balance is off, things can go wrong.
Completely. So I think probably the simplest way that everyone in life has encountered is in your yard, right? You're in your yard and grass is growing, trees are growing, flowers are growing. And you kind of look at your garden and you say, wow, I planted these beautiful flowers. But what seems to come up every now and then are weeds, right? And weeds are not what you want in your garden. So you pull your weeds, right? And basically, if you didn't do that, these weeds would take over your garden, and eventually they would make it such that your flowers can't grow, and you want your flowers to grow. And our skin is sort of like that. There's good and bad bacteria. There's good and bad mites. There are good and bad fungus. And when one of them gets out of control like a weed, that's when you start to see some skin issues start to develop. And so there are a myriad of skin issues that come from dysregulation of the microbiome, meaning that one thing has sort of outcompeted the other things and started to have a more significant role in the skin. And so, for example, with acne, many people have this Cutibacterium acne that has taken over their skin microbiome and is now become a pathological species under the skin and will start to contribute to the formation of acne. There is an organism called Malassezia Malassezia that contributes to fungal acne, also known as Malassezia folliculitis, that contributes to tinea versicolor, that contributes to dandruff. And it lives on most of our skin normally in harmony and good balance, but it can eventually overgrow. Your skin can start to hate it. Inflammation starts to form. You start to get flaking, dandruff, tinea versicolor, and so on and so forth. Same thing with mites. We can get rosacea that flares from mites, causing dysregulation in our skin. And so this article is completely true. Now, I think where we still have trouble with this, right, is that we have this understanding that a healthy skin microbiome means healthy skin, and that a lot of these things, when they get out of control, start to cause problems. And we know that we can treat those things when they get out of control. But this concept of introducing prebiotics or probiotics onto the skin, or live organisms onto the in in order to contribute to a better skin microbiome, we're just not quite there yet. We've done a few studies. I think even La Roche-Posay, Vichy have done studies on their thermal water and the prebiotics that are in their thermal water and how that contributes to a healthy skin microbiome. I just don't think we're quite there as a specialty to understand truly what do we introduce into our skin that is going to actually be helpful sort of universally. So I agree that the concept is truly there, that I believe that if you do introduce the right things, that it could help the skin. I just don't think we know what that thing yet is that we're introducing. So it would be hard for me to sell you anything yet that could play that role.
Yeah, no, that's very true, because does everyone need to be taking like 1 billion colony forming units of lactobacillus? Is that the magic bullet for all things? Is that the organism that makes all things better? And that's probably not the case. There are definitely studies actually that show specific types of organisms, like there's L. acidophilus, B. bifidum, which we'll actually see in a lot of different products and also orally. So each actual bacteria does have different benefits. And I think personally, I think a broad range of bacteria on the skin is going to provide the most benefits. And so just supplementing one also doesn't seem, in my mind, to create diversity. Yeah, so I think there's a lot more research and then a much better implementation of this over time that can be done. Also, it's kind of confusing. This whole topic is confusing for people because people say, I have staph on my skin. Well, yeah, we all have staph on our skin. We all have normal bacteria on our skin, whether it's Corynebacterium or Staphylococcus epidermidis, which is a bacteria that actually helps prevent Staphylococcus aureus. And so again, we see this balance shift in people with eczema. They get a higher proportion of aureus, less of the normal staph species epidermidis. I think it's dermatitis. There's like the D and the T in there that are throwing me off right now. But basically, you do need a balance. You do need some of these healthy organisms. But it is a confusing conversation when you get into the depths of it, especially when you're speaking to the normal general public, because they often share the same first name, and just the second name of these organisms is actually a big change in terms of how it actually behaves and interacts with our skin. But I do think we're going to see more and more of this implemented over time.
Right. And I think there are a few brands that have tried to base their entire skincare line on this is the microbiome skincare line. And I don't think we're there quite yet. I do agree. Like there's that bifida ferment lysate that has been shown to really be helpful for people who have sensitive skin, calming and soothing. So I think that there are single ingredients or single types of prebiotics and probiotics that will start to thrive, no pun intended, within this environment, a skincare world. But I don't think we're quite there. And like having an entire skincare line, I would probably more imagine that more of the heritage brands would start to incorporate some of these ingredients into their launches rather than you needing like a separate line just for your microbiome. So that's kind of where we're at. We've talked about it a million times, the idea of organisms on your skin and how to target them. So let's move on to our next article, which is really kind of, I can't tell you how many people sent me this article when it came out, because I think, one, I'm very interested in this side of skincare, but two, I think it really kind of took the industry by storm in a lot of ways. And that's this article and this announcement from Loreal that they acquired a 10% stake in Galderma. So Loreal, the company, takes a 10% stake in Galderma. Why is this sort of shocking to a lot of people? It's because these, from most people's eyes, are competitors. Many people look at Galderma and Loreal to be competitors, especially in the dermatologic beauty skin health space. So Loreal owns everything, right? And they have multiple divisions, and their sort of thriving division right now is Loreal Dermatologic Beauty, also known as LDB. And this section of Loreal houses all of the brands that you've heard of. So a lot of people will be like, well, I like La Roche-Posay, but I don't like CeraVe. They're all Loreal Dermatologic Beauty, right? So CeraVe, La Roche-Posay, Skinceuticals, Vichy, Skin Better Science. I feel like I'm forgetting one more, but these are all housed underneath Loreal Dermatologic Beauty.
Right. And the interesting thing, like you mentioned, so you have CeraVe under that umbrella, and then for Galderma, and I don't think this is actually part of the acquisition based off of the synopsis, but Cetaphil exists in Galderma, which has been that original perpetual rivalry. Like, is it Cetaphil or CeraVe? Which is better? So as this relationship expands, I'm actually quite intrigued to see a little bit more crosstalk and interaction between those two.
What is it? Yeah. What does it ultimately mean for these two companies? So you have Cetaphil, which is under Galderma. You also have Differin and their entire lineup, which is under Galderma. And the other thing about Galderma is that they're more of a vertically integrated dermatologic company. So they have their consumer goods brands, which are available over the counter, which are Cetaphil and Differin. But then they also have their prescription or injectable line, which is Restylane and Dysport. And then they also have it like an injectable biological class. I think Galderma is about to launch the nemolizumab biologic for itch, for eczema. So there's sort of a vertically integrated company, and they also have prescription treatments like Epiduo and things like that. So they have like, and what I will say about Galderma is that they've brought a lot of innovation to the space. They've launched a lot of really unique products in the prescription space. And then even Differin being the first version of adapalene that was available over the counter. I mean, all of this was actually pioneered by Galderma. And Cetaphil has sort of lost a lot of their the grounds that they had really in the US. Mm-hmm. They were a much larger brand than CeraVe. And then CeraVe basically eclipsed them over the past few years on the L'Oreal side. And then L'Oreal also has Luxe. So they have Kiehl's, they have Youth to the People. They also have L'Oreal Paris. So they have a myriad of other brands, both in prestige, mass, luxe, mastige. So you have so much underneath the L'Oreal umbrella. And, what this article actually goes into is they also talk about how L'Oreal Dermatologic Beauty, which is the derm brands, the ones that we always talk about, the CeraVe, the La Roche-Posay, the Vichy, have outpaced the growth of the consumer brands. And what I think that the average person is learning is that they simply want products that are going to work. They want products that are actually going to be good for their skin. They're tired of buying products that don't work just because they're in pretty packaging or they've gone viral. And they want to focus on the brands that have clinical studies that show that they actually work. And this is what in my opinion, has led to the growth of these L'Oreal Dermatologic Beauty brands that are outpacing the luxe and prestige brands within L'Oreal. And then L'Oreal says, well, let's double down on this and actually invest in Galderma so that we're not like competing with these. We're just kind of lifting the space. But what I'll be curious to know is this going to mean that L'Oreal will license some of their intellectual property to Galderma and vice versa? Because that'll be interesting, because La Roche-Posay has an adapalene product that they don't buy or license from Galderma. So will Galderma then turn around and say, actually, we'll license you this adapalene so that you can use it in the La Roche-Posay lineup? Is it just purely an investment in cash because they think that there's a lot of potential in Galderma? Or is there going to be some type of mind share between these two companies? Or is L'Oreal going to just acquire Galderma eventually outright? I don't know.
That would
I don't
be
know.
wild. No, and I don't think it's impossible either. L'Oreal, they are they have to be the world leader. It seems like so much falls under the umbrella. And actually, I would be pretty excited for the whole skincare world, to be honest. The more collaborative these two are, I think the better our skin and the better off we'll be, because I do think L'Oreal has a world-class R&D team, but I do agree. I think Cetaphil actually has Galderma has a tremendous R&D team that focuses specifically for us as professionals. Like, I think most of their attention has been there and continues to be there. It's like nemolizumab for, like you said, eczema, probably in the future, prurigo nodularis now. But the more you marry these techs with over-the-counter accessibility, I just think it's going to be better overall. It's funny because I usually don't like to see I actually hate to see one company take over a ton. Like, if you ask me my general feelings for Amazon, it's always quite negative. But this, I think in general, I think what L'Oreal does specifically well is they leave brands alone. So like whenever they take over a company or they buy a company, they do an amazing job, I think, at leaving the heritage and the vision of the brand intact. And so that's why for them, I kind of actually get excited about their prospects, because you kind of keep the focus, extend the reach, and expand the scope of whatever the original company was.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would hate to like have price fixing type of situation going on, because there is definitely a lot of inflation in skincare. And the more control that one company has, the more they're able to just raise the prices of all the competitors, and consumers are just sort of forced to buy whatever is available at that point. But I think this is a major win for sort of just derm beauty in general, the direction that skin health is taking. The thesis of sort of Remedy is within this category of brands. So, for me, it's exciting because it feels like we're going the right direction with what we created. And then I hope that there's some sort of mind share, but at the same time, I hope that the brand stays sort of independent so that they can continue to be competitive and make better products for consumers. But I don't know. I guess we'll kind of see how this relationship plays out. But it just sort of shows that we all think that everyone's competing, and we throw our support behind, a thing that we think is competing, but behind the scenes, everybody's kind of playing friendly with each other. And, they're all just trying to look to see where they can continue to win. But this is major, major news in the skincare world. And the question is, what does this mean for like a Neutrogena, who's not in this, or an Aveeno that's not in this, right? Does this put them in a bad position? Because now they're not part of this, L'Oreal flywheel that's occurring. So I don't know. I mean, I think the skincare world is changing. So we'll see what happens. The next article is out of the Sunday Times, and the headline of the article, which is extremely dangerous, is "Sun exposure and tanning beds may be good for you," study suggests. So what does this study really suggest, and why is this headline the worst headline we've seen in a while?
Right. So the headline says, I think very specifically and clearly, sun beds or tanning beds may be good for you. Basically, it outweighs the risks. And that is just wildly, one, inaccurate, but two, when I went down and tried to find the details on the study and the data, and as I read more about what they were actually saying, there was some very specific nuance. They said that sunbeds were linked to, let's say, a 23% lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease and a 14% lower risk of death from cancer compared to non-users. And then that did change per population. And then they also very specifically cited out to a study showing that people with multiple sclerosis may have a lower risk of getting MS or multiple sclerosis with your UV exposure and subsequent vitamin D levels. That's more of a known association. However, there's an extremely important caveat in this, in that they said they do acknowledge that those who utilize tanning beds, sunbeds, as they cite them here, are also those who are likely to be outdoors and seek outdoor activities. That, I think, is the crux of the whole thing, because there's no we've said this very consistently on this channel, even from early on, that like being outside or at least being active is good for you. And if you are trying to get tan, that probably does mean you want to show some skin. That probably does mean you want to be outside. Or a lot of people incorrectly will try to get a base tan. And by that, justifying how they're going to spend time outside. So that I think is the most important takeaway, is that we need to figure out how to balance and marry the idea of being outside and active and having healthy skin. Because the other side of this, and there's no argument about it, and they don't propose any alternative or any alternate discussion, is that tanning beds are associated with cancer. And so the idea that you can be both active, minimize your risk of other types of cancer or metabolic syndrome or other health benefits, and avoid a tanning bed is completely left out of the conversation. I think that is the way to go. Be outside active, protect your skin, and skip the tanning beds. The conversation is not like the study headline or this article headline suggests, tanning beds may be good for you. That's like completely wrong. That is the wrong narrative and not even the conclusion of what they actually said.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, one of the things that we hear always in any statistics course, any scientific course is, correlation does not mean causation. And I think a lot of people fall into this trap where the simplest way to explain this is, they'll say, okay, let's say that you have a group of people that are smokers, right? But they also do something else, right? They are rugby players or something like that. I don't know. Who knows? And they're in better shape than the average person. And they're smokers, but rugby players. And then they go, well, smokers are in better shape than the average population. Well, it's like, well, they're not. It's not because they're smokers. It's because they're rugby players, right? So a lot of people will draw this causation between two things that occur at the same time that are totally unrelated and maybe even counterintuitive to each other. So people who tend to go into tanning beds may have other advantages because they do other things. And they were even saying in this study that there were other confounding variables, such as the fact that, the people, like, for example, where they did the study, there was a lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease and cancer in general, compared to other places. So, there were other confounding variables just in general, that were unrelated to like the physical exercise and stuff that these people did. I can say verifiably and confidently that there is no universe other than under very, very select conditions, where tanning beds are going to be beneficial for people. It's certainly not going to lower your cardiovascular risk. There is no reason why it would. And it is only going to increase your risk of aging and skin cancer. Me, as proof of this, I used to go tanning all the time. I probably spent more than 100 times in a tanning bed and ended up with skin cancer on my chest from doing exactly this. And we know it accelerates aging. There is absolutely no reason why I would have any benefit on cardiovascular health. There is rare instances where tanning beds could help with psoriasis. They could help with other conditions that benefit from UV light, but in general, we have way better treatments now for psoriasis that there's really no reason why anyone really should be getting a tanning bed exposure. So I can say verifiably, don't read this article and think, hey, maybe I should go into a tanning bed. There's absolutely zero reason why you should go into a tanning bed nowadays. Now, we know we've both admitted to the benefits of sunlight in general, being active in general, but wearing sunscreen is going to be the way that you do it if you're going to be outside and active.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, tanning beds still as bad for you as they ever were. Just balance it with a healthy lifestyle and somehow you come out on top there. Now, what is this Differin campaign that you wanted to bring up?
I just threw this in here while I was perusing the internet, so you know nothing about this, but I had seen this campaign show up on my feed and I was curious about it, and then I found an article about it. So basically what happened that showed up on my feed, I'll just kind of show my chronological experience, is I started seeing like all these gaming ads, like gamers talking about Differin and about how using Differin while you're gaming and within the gaming industry, and then them sponsoring sort of gaming events. I was like, oh, this is interesting, but I didn't realize this was sort of in a concerted effort. So this is coming out of happy.com. Differin levels up the conversation around acne with new gaming campaign. The Level Up campaign aims to provide skincare education to the gaming community. Now, I've talked about marketing campaigns in the past that I think are kind of goofy, right? Where I'm like, are we really approaching this the right way? Are we really actually going after what the consumer needs? And, I think this campaign actually makes a lot of sense to me. This to me is a good job by Differin, and I'll tell you why. So they are trying to bridge, they're doing the online campaign. A lot of gamers and Twitch streamers are chronically online, so it makes sense, right? They're targeting sort of the influencers within that world or the streamers within that world, right, to get them to learn about skincare. But they also are doing a different arcade at TwitchCon from September 19th to the 22nd in San Diego, where they'll be basically hosting a booth. And, I think this is smart, and because of the particular product portfolio that Differin has. So Differin has now a range of ingredients, but really are best known for what they do in the acne space. And I truly believe that Differin gel, adapalene gel, is one of the best products for acne, if not the best product for acne that's available on the market. I stand by this. I think the data suggests this. It was once upon a time a prescription, and then they brought it over the counter. Now, this population of people, right, Twitch streamers in general, they tend to be a little bit younger. They tend to be in that age range where acne is going to be prominent. And regardless of what your interests are in life, right? You may be interested in surfing. I may be interested in fashion. You may be interested in chess. I may be interested in, I don't know, home decor. Who knows, right? We all kind of have our different interests, right? But what's sort of universal about this is that a lot of us experience acne and skin conditions, right? And specifically acne as a teenager, sort of a universally felt. It doesn't matter like if you're into sports or if you're into, I don't know, Comic-Con, you're still going to experience this acne, and it's still going to bother you, and it's still going to affect your confidence. And if you're a Twitch streamer and you're in front of a camera all day, and people are seeing you and you're breaking out, you're going to feel self-conscious. Maybe you're not going to want to play. Maybe you're going to want to turn your camera off, right? And this is going to affect your prospects, right? So I think actually this community suffers from acne just like anybody else. They would benefit from learning about skincare and acne and acne solutions, because they're not watching beauty content, right? They're not watching our content. They're watching completely different content. So these are people with the same needs as everybody else, but nobody really kind of markets to them. And I think acne is like the exact thing to market for. I think the other things like that you would maybe want to market to them for, like, I don't know, maybe do they care about fine lines and wrinkles? Probably not as much, right? But I think acne is something that is a category that Twitch streamers and people who are into gaming would benefit a lot from learning about products that are beneficial there. So to me, this is a meaningful, thoughtful campaign that should hopefully lead to a lift of sales within that community.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Can't say I've had a dissimilar thought in the past about this, because they are meeting them where they are. And this is the same thing I said when we were talking about kind of the idea of men's skincare, and you got your like prototypical masculine person out there. They're also probably not watching our content, but they do probably care about their skin and their appearance. And so sometimes like you start the conversation on common ground. And so for Twitch to be for people on Twitch to be for Differin to be marketing people on Twitch with something for acne makes a lot of sense because of the demographic, because everyone has skin, and because you're taking the step forward to talk to them in a space they're already in, where they're already comfortable, to try to bring them out towards something that might be very impactful for them. So I actually love the campaign. I like that they're bringing people information that they probably wouldn't have accessed on their own. So it makes a lot of sense. I think it's great.
Right. Very thoughtful, very smart. I think probably going to be well executed. What could be interesting is like bringing in, because, our friend, Dr. Dylan Greeny, he's big into gaming, loves streaming, right? He would be a good person to sort of bring into this mix, right? Because he's a derm, but he also loves gaming. Can it make Differin the derm solution for acne within the Twitch world by bringing in derms who actually are into streaming and Twitch themselves? I think that would be a way. That's a freebie to you, Differin. I think. Just because like I do think like authority helps. Authority helps to kind of drive the point home when you're trying to make decisions, regardless of what your niche is. So let's talk about this next thing. And you don't know anything about it, but it showed up on my feed. And I'm just curious about this because I left a comment on this video because, I don't know, I just wanted to talk about it. But all right, I'm going to play the video so you can hear the audio. It's not, I don't think it's a long video.
So my friend went to this conference with all the world's top female dermatologists, and they sent around this email chain. It's like, what is the one thing you need to use on your face? And it was unanimous. It was the CE Ferulic. I know you can get like a bunch of different brands, but they said, as long as you use that, you can have the cheapest drugstore moisturizer, whatever it is. I use like Trader Joe's or Neutrogena or one of those things. So I started using the CE Ferulic. It's the only expensive thing I buy in, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And I'm 56, man. I feel like it's like a miracle. So my friend went to this.
Okay. So, well, first of all, I want to start with the premise of this. My friend went to this conference with the top female dermatologists, who then sent out around an email thread where they said the only product that they use, or the best product they use, is CE Ferulic. Like, what do you think about the factuality of this story?
Yeah, this is kind of like, my friend's cousin's aunt's uncle told me that they love kombucha. There's definitely, I don't know. That is a good question. Like, how much of that actually exists?
There is a, like, because at first I'm trying to figure out, like, where is this conference where the top female derms go to? There is like a women's derm society, that's quite active, and they definitely, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong about this, and maybe I'll look this up afterwards. I don't think they have their own conference, but they do have meetings within conferences. So, like if we go to the AAD, which is the largest dermatologic conference in the US, they will have a sort of a lunch, or part of the conference sort of dedicated, or that group of female dermatologists will have like their own like sessions while they're there. But as far as I know, there's no separate sort of conference, and I don't believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe that they would all leverage on that one product, except for under one circumstance. So I left a comment on this video because I started to feel pretty strongly about this, especially after, working on a brand, and I wrote, good product, but overpriced, and identical options are now available. Only still popular in the derm world because of lore and dogma. And your skin looks amazing, by the way. So, her skin looks great, and I don't question. I think CE Ferulic is a great product, but CE Ferulic was created decades ago, and the price just continues to go up, right? I remember we first started doing content. CE Ferulic was $160, which I thought was outrageous then. Now it's $180. The cost of goods has not gone up by $20 for that product. In fact, if I had to guess, as somebody who now works on the side of working out the cost of goods for our products, which our products will have like 15 actives in, this product is less than $1 to make. Less than $1. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but if I had to guess, I would say it costs less than $1 to make this product. And $180 for that, to me, especially now that there are so many products out there, so many good, vitamin C products that have the vitamin C, the E, the ferulic acid, and maybe something else right now. Like they throw in, ergothioneine, or they throw in, ectoin, or something, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel that I genuinely, and we've talked about this before, the research that Sheldon Pinnell did to create vitamin C and, market it, I think at the time was groundbreaking. At the time, it was an advancement in skincare, because we're talking about what pH does this need to be formulated? What else do you need to make it with to stabilize it? And people do see incredible results with this product. I just think it's so expensive for what it's offering, and the price continues to go up. And I think it's able to sustain that just because of lore within the derm world. I think when you're young and impressionable derm and you learn about a product and it has an impact on you while you're still in that phase of your career where you're formulating what your recommendations are going to be to your patients, and it's sticky with you, then I think you just take it with you throughout the rest of your career, and you don't like really try to learn about new products, because why would you, right? You found the things you like, and you're not thinking about like, oh, is there a better version of this that came out, or is there a better way from, you just think, you stick with it, right? And you recommend it, and you continue to recommend it, right? Because you see results with it. But I just truly think that it's still popular only because of like, it's just become lore within the derm world.
So this is super interesting because there's a lot of conversations I have had recently, yesterday included, let's say, where I'm talking to patients, especially when, we're doing a lot of lasers this week. And, what else are you using? What do you have on your shelf? Like, what are you going to use tomorrow? What are you going to use, not use? And so many people are buying these high-end products, this medical grade skincare. And I just usually drop a, oh, wow, you're bougie kind of thing, because and this is one of the reasons I haven't sold products out of my office that are medical grade. And I don't, it's kind of an internal struggle, because we probably will at some point out of convenience for people. But the medical grade markup is not relevant. It's not legitimate, because the over-the-counter products have become so excellent, especially over the last 3 years. Almost always you're going to be able to get a comparable version at a very small fraction of the price for any high-end skincare product these days. Now, the only one I think that is like truly probably medical grade-ish is Skin Better Science sometimes, because I do think they actually have some unique novel tech. But then the way they still approach it, it's difficult to buy. Like they still have some gatekeeping involved with their products that make it difficult to buy as well. So yeah, it's actually a very relevant conversation. I find that it's actually difficult to convince people who are buying high-end skincare to do otherwise. And
Completely agree.
It's
completely
interesting.
Agree.
Yeah, you do. You
like I'm trying to save people money. Like I have no alternative motive,
Yeah, right.
Like my wife, she likes the product. She thinks it works. And like I said, I think a product does work. It doesn't do as much as people say it does, but I do think it has benefits to the skin. She still thinks it's the better product. I'm like, I have so much data to suggest otherwise, but it's just that she thinks like, because it's more expensive, like it has to be better. Like, why would they charge $180 for this product if it's not better than the $40 vitamin C? If it's not better than the $30 vitamin C, how could they? They can. And like, I'm not saying this because like I have a theory that they're not I work with contract manufacturers. So like on the skincare side of things, I'll kind of explain to you a little bit how it works. There is a bunch of brands and they all make products, and most of these products are made by a handful of contract manufacturers. So what we did was we created formulas with our chemists, and we took those formulas to a contract manufacturer, and we said, hey, can you now that we have this small amount that we made with our chemist, can you take this recipe that we created and make this 10,000 units instead of 10 units, right? So they scale it up and then they put them in bottles for you. But they take your formula a lot of times, or they help you develop a formula together. So either you bring them a formula or they make a formula with you, and then they mass scale that formula, right? So when I talk to these contract manufacturers, they will literally tell me, like, we make one product, not like our products, because our products were all like really unique, like individually selected. Really, if you've seen our products, you know they're like multiple ingredients into one formula. But like when it comes to these products that are sort of simple, like CE Ferulic products, they will tell me like, we sell this same formula to two brands. One brand sells it for $30. Another brand sells it for $200. Like they're the same formula. So it's not like a theoretical scenario. It's like, they know it. And they're always shocked. They're like, I don't know how. I mean, branding plays such a big role in what people are willing to pay for products. Packaging, branding, the way that you position it plays a big role in what people are willing to pay for products. But truly, it's not like maybe they're maybe they're not better, but they truly are a lot of times identical. Now, it's not saying Skinceuticals falls into this category, but there are many brands that do fall into that category where the markup is truly due to branding, and there is literally no difference. In fact, a lot of times they're white labeled products, meaning that the contract manufacturer basically has a library of products that they sell to multiple brands, And it's literally the formula from the contract manufacturer that all the brands are buying into and slapping on different labels to them. And so, there are many brands, like I agree with you, Skin Better Science. When you look at, for example, Alpha Defense Serum, which is what I would consider to be the Skinceuticals vitamin C competitor within the Skin Better Skinceuticals product portfolio, and they're both L'Oreal. If you look at the ingredients on this product, right, this has like vitamin C, vitamin E, coenzyme Q10. It has turmeric, green tea. It has superoxide dismutase, ergothioneine, saffron, which I don't know if it has any benefits to the skin, licorice root, different peptides. So when you look at the ingredient list on a Alto Defense serum, which is having similar benefits to CE Ferulic, it has just so many more ingredients in it to accomplish the task of sun protection or like antioxidant protection, collagen building, dark spot treatment, even has ginger root, which is shown to have some benefits. It has ceramides in it. Like, this is such a more comprehensive product at a similar price point. So it's not even like the argument around the price point to me as much as like, what is this product doing for the price point? And even then I would say that's a very steep price to pay for a product, but I do truly think that it's really a lore that is keeping this sort of product afloat.
Yeah, it is interesting. You know what? I don't know how to. I think part of it too, though, is honestly, it's equally hard to convince. I think professionals, whether it's doctors, physicians, PAs, and NPs, estheticians, like a lot of them also strongly support the medical grade products because it's what they are comfortable with. They get to see the results on a day-to-day basis, and I think that side is perhaps fair. Like, that's what they sell out of their office, and they're like, I love it, so I'm going to sell it, and I think that's very genuine. Especially though, like you mentioned, a lot of people don't have a lot of familiarity with over-the-counter products like we do. Like, we just spend so much time, an immense amount of time, more than most human beings probably, in over-the-counter products, looking how they work, and then you now making them. So like, I think it's somewhat justifiable. It's perhaps the lore around it, and I don't actually see that changing soon. I do think medical grade skincare has less power than it did before, but I don't think it's actually going to go away despite that. Now, the conversation within the conversation here is, should you invest all of that money into the vitamin C in the morning? Because that's what she was saying. You spend cheapo everywhere else, but your vitamin C has to be where you spend your money. And I will say that actually the Skinceuticals vitamin C is still one of my favorites of all time. So if money wasn't an issue, I actually might choose that one still. Personally, I don't know why. I love it. It's stripped down. It's whatever. I'm a fool, but I love it. Well, with that being said, I would spend first my money on my retinoid probably, then maybe on my sunscreen if that's what I was going to wear. I mean, like to get the one that I would wear aesthetically on a regular basis if I felt like I had to spend money. And then third, maybe third, vitamin C, maybe antioxidants, because that is kind of the cornerstone staple ingredient for the morning. I like
Agreed.
most people.
And then I would save on my cleansers, moisturizers. I completely agree with the premise of like the ranking. I would say retinoid number one. That's where like that treatment, night treatment, where you're going to see the biggest results with. You want a good product there, a stable product there. You want a good sunscreen. Then you'd want a good antioxidant serum. And then your cleansers and moisturizers, you can definitely, try to aim under $20 with. Completely agree with the premise for sure. And then to be clear for anyone listening, like medical grade is completely a marketing term. It's just something that, is generally sold at derm offices, no longer true. And now pretty much widely available. There's no changes in the concentrations. There's, now historically medical grade brands tend to have like brands that call themselves medical grade tend to do a little bit more research, but that's not universally true. And it doesn't necessarily make the products any better. And to your point, I don't think it's nefarious on the part of these derms and the estheticians for pushing these products. I do truly believe it's the way that they were trained and the way that they learned about products, to your point, is the reason why they recommend them. Because if you are trained in an office from a derm, and that's why I say it's lore and dogma and not like malintent, that has led to the rise of these products. It's because if you are trained in an office that only uses SkinCeuticals, you're told by the person who trained you that these are the greatest products ever, and you tell your patients that, and then your patients see results, you can't even think or fathom about getting a cheaper product because you just don't have any experience with it. And you were convinced that this is the product. You even use it yourself, right? So I think that's the reason why this happens. And it happens with estheticians, it happens with dermatologists, it happens with plastic surgeons. Whatever you sort of carry and learn about, you know, and I'm guilty of this too, because when I was starting training, Dr. Cook, who trained both of us, who was our associate program director, told me like, hey, you need to figure out what your skincare routine is going to be, because like patients are going to ask you and you're going to need to be able to give them recommendations. And I was like, well, I don't even know where to start. And he's like, try CeraVe. You know, and so this is where my CeraVe lore began. Now, for me, like they just happen to be less expensive products, right? But we at the time carried Obagi at our office, which I ended up not falling in love with. But we had Obagi at the time. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we eventually started carrying Image, which then I also never fell in love with either. But that's where my CeraVe lore began, and then I became the CeraVe ambassador. So I'm very much guilty of this. Also, I'm just saying that like when it comes to expensive products, you know, then it's a bigger hit to the wallet for sure. So yeah, I was trained on CeraVe and La Roche-Posay, and I kind of stuck with it also, but at least they're affordable.
Yeah. And skincare has changed over time. I still stand by the fact that 10 years ago, there was a huge distinction between medical grade skincare, like Skinceuticals or Elta MD, or I don't know, like other medical grade brands versus, or Image, even Image or Obagi versus what was available over the counter. But the over the counter skincare space has caught on so much, probably honestly on the backs of dermatologists critiquing and helping these brands build and grow. And then consumers, everyone, the general public, embracing the factual evidence-based skincare movement, and then companies finding out, oh yeah, you don't need to charge $200 for your serum. Like we can still be profitable and sustainable charging a tenth of that, you know, or maybe not a tenth for vitamin C, but just the same. The concept applies. Skincare has elevated over the years, and it's making it difficult for any over-the-counter brand, medical grade or not, to distinguish themselves or justify a high price point.
Right. And we just have to keep pushing brands to be better, to innovate, to create better products. And I do think we're entering this world where I do think skincare is going to get super interesting with peptides and all the different technology we're bringing into the space. So, and that will push us, you know, there probably will be a day where, you know, remedy products, like we have to improve them, or we have to figure out like, how do we level them up? Because, you know, there's new waves of stuff that make it so that, you know, maybe our products are obsolete in 10, 15 years. Right. So, you just kind of have to keep pushing, keep innovating, and then trying to meet your customers where you are. So anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. We covered actually a ton in this episode, but please like, comment, subscribe, make sure that you're, you know, following us on both the YouTube platform where we post the video version of this, and then also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, where we also drop this podcast. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
We will see you next time.